normal rentals, I'm like, I don't know if the numbers make sense on a normal rental. I figured out, what my expenses would be, what the rents were. And at the time, like Yuma was still really off the map other than the military in town. And the rents were just not near what the prices were. I'm like, I don't know if this makes sense for me. What's up, everyone? So I wanted to get on here real quick and I wanted to kind of start talking about my first rental experience. So in light of, if you haven't seen it, a couple weeks ago, I posted about a short-term rental condo complex here in Orlando, and I got a lot of reach outs because of it. But just like usual, I get a lot of reach outs, and I also got a lot of people who they talk a big game about getting into, renting real estate, and they get all excited. And then when it comes time to pull the trigger, they get nervous, they get scared, or like a number of reasons of why they get so caught up in making that jump. And I figured, you know what? I'm just going to jump on here for a little bit, like 10 minutes, and I'm just kind of going to give you my story of when I got my first rental property, the good, the bad, our experience, and really just everything. So, just like most people, I originally, found a piece of information. In this case, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I read it. Someone had given it to me while I was on a debt in Yuma, Arizona. And it changed my mindset because, I'd always been looking for like, what's my path? Where's my next step in life? That was, that's what came up. That was like the next step for me at that time. I was like, you know what? I want to do this. I'm making good money, here in the military. I had some money saved up. I'm like, I got to do this. Came back. At that time, I was just dating my wife, and we were just, sat down and started talking about like, I really want to do this, but, I'll wait until I get out of the Marine Corps. I'll do it down the road. And what's funny is she looked, she's like, why would you wait? Why wouldn't you do it now? And I didn't have a good answer for that. And it's a good point, because you get to a point where you're like, right, why would I wait for that? Why would I wait to do that? And it really comes down, like we all hit that point where like we talk a big game, you get the information, and then you're like, oh, maybe there's more information. Well, in reality, like there's always gonna be more information, but you have to take action. You're not gonna learn until you take the action, actually get there and do it. So we were like, right. And I was like, well, you're right. Holy cow. All right. Like, what's the next step? And I was like, I started looking locally in San Diego at the time. And I'm like, holy cow, like I do not have the down payment to get involved here. It's going to have to be out of state. And I didn't know really much about out of state investing at the time. But then she brought up, I came home from work one day and she had done the research and she was like, hey, what about Yuma? I'm like, Yuma? I'm like, no way. I'm like, it's the middle of nowhere. Like, there's no way anything would work there. And lo and behold, I'm like, there were some model homes and some homes in the community that I'm like, we can figure that out financially when we get there and kind of figure some things out. So we did the research. We decided, I'm like, okay, normal rentals. I'm like, I don't know if the numbers make sense on a normal rental. I figured out, what my expenses would be, what the rents were. And at the time, like Yuma was still really off the map other than the military in town. And the rents were just not near what the prices were. I'm like, I don't know if this makes sense for me. Well, we're like, well, we could try Airbnb. That was like definitely the hot ticket. It was 2017. It was like, the hot ticket. Everyone was freaking out about it. Everyone wanted to do it. So we were like, okay, well, we'll do that. Like not knowing any better, like we're going to do this. And then we found it really hard. I'm like, being in a smaller market at the time, like finding a good agent was, oh my God. And like, by the way, I was working full time in the military, working like 14 hours a day minimum. Right. And she was doing all this research on the side, in between her working hours and things like that. We also had our son who was just, born at the time. And then all of a sudden we're like, okay. She's like, I think I found someone. And what's funny is like in Monty, if we ever watched this, brother, super grateful for everything you did at the time for us. So we found Monty. He was a new agent at the time, and he had a lot of energy, which for Yuma was super hard to find at the time. I had no connections there. All I knew is I went there previously in the desert, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And we went there. And we drove 3 hours on a weekend. Thankfully, like it was within bounds in San Diego. Those of you who've been in the military, you understand you can go so far technically without getting in trouble. So it was a long weekend. We were able to go out there and we were able to see Yuma. And we got there, and I think most of the properties we had lined up were junk. And they were not good. They were not great neighborhoods. And we found a model home we really loved on the outskirts of Yuma there. And we like, okay, I'm like, this could make sense. oh, crap, now we have to figure out how to financially afford this, right? Went through all this headache, all this research, like how are we going to do it? Where are we going to go? Like months of just like a couple months of just figuring this out. Because no matter what, I was going there in that September in 2017 to do this. And what's funny is we didn't even own a home. We were living with our mom at the time in San Diego, trying to save up money doing that for cheaper. And I was like, what's funny, our first home together was lining up to be something that we weren't even living in, we were renting, which is crazy, but a lot of people, it's counterintuitive what most people hear, but hey, that's what we did. And so then we figured it out. We're like, okay, we had enough for about 12% of the down payment, which for all you know, when you're not living somewhere, like it's like, okay, well, I went to Yuma at least once. I always got pulled to go there like at least once a year. So technically counted as the second home. But we wanted to do a 15-year mortgage. I wasn't really big on, I was big on 30-year just for the cash flowing aspect of it. But, Martha really wanted to do that 15-year mortgage and it still fit the numbers. So I'm like, okay, fine. We'll just take a little bit less profit every month. But overall, we'll gain more appreciation over the course of the loan. And we did that. We figured it out. Thankfully, her mom, God bless her. I will always give her credit for this, even though we fight at times. But she took, some money she had. She even took like a personal loan at the time for something else, right? She had the cash and all that. And we were able to at the time, obviously it's always different. Every situation is different. Every bank's different. Lender's different. Like hard cash is always the best cash. But in this case, we were able to make it work. We were able to get support for the down payment. And we were able to get 19% down. We were like so close to the full 20. And in order to get the model home, there were other offers coming in and we're like, oh my God, we got to be able to do this. So we jumped in, we had to eat the mortgage insurance, which is not what I wanted to do because it just really it was like a small negative in order to pay her mom back for that first year. And I'm like, I don't want to do this, but we did it. I was nervous the whole time. I was scared to think that I feel like I had everything on my shoulders and I was like, I got this figured out. Not true at all. No idea what I was doing. Every step of the way was just like, I hope I'm doing the right thing. I really had no idea. And that's what I tell people. Like they look at getting into investing in real estate, and they were like, oh, like I'll hit a point where I'll know what's going on. Heck no. I'm like, as an adult, do you know every day of your life? You know exactly how to handle every situation? No. And investing in real estate's the same way. And I realized I just have to make the decision and I'll figure things out as we go. I knew the numbers made sense. I had practiced before that, how to run numbers. I had other people look at it. I'm like, okay, this can work. Let's do it. So we were able to close on it. We got the deal. And being a model home, it was a little bit underpriced for the community. And thankfully, we were able to get into the home and some of the closing costs were covered. So it's just the down payment for the loan we had to worry about, which is awesome. And we had a builder's warranty for the next year, which is, if you don't know, home warranties, you have to pay a small fee. Builder's warranties, in this case, they covered everything. Anything that broke, no fee we had to pay. They covered everything for the next year, which we definitely had to use. There was so much wrong with the house. But we got into it and then we own the home, right? We're in Yuma temporarily for this weekend, right? This all happened over a weekend. It was like a month and a half of research. Boom. All of a sudden we drove to Yuma. We had Donovan, our oldest, but at the time he was the only one we had. He was brand new. He's only in the world for 2.5 months at that time. No idea what was going on, but we did it. We drove out there, we figured it out. We got the home and then it was like, oh crap. Now we got to furnish this place because we're going to do short-term rental. And again, like I said, you're never ready. There's never a perfect time. There was always chaos and things going on. It was just a constant issue after another. So we went back. Thankfully, we had, when you buy a house, you usually have about a month before you have to start making payments. So I'm like, okay. So that time it was August of 2017. We closed on the home. We owned the home. And we're like, all right, what's next? Well, now we made a decision. Now we got to furnish the place. Well, again, mind you, all this time, other than funding the savings that I had from working in the military, Martha did all this. God bless her. She is the main manager. She did, I was lucky enough to be partnered with someone in life who is very good at managing and very able to think things out on her feet. And she, all the while I'm working, maybe I helped pick up furniture. So we started looking at Facebook, OfferUp, all these sites, and we were able to get all the furnishings for this house for, oh my gosh, I think we only spent it was under $500. It was not a lot. It was so the home, it was technically a 2-bedroom, but there was a third, they called it an office, but we counted it as a bedroom later on, but it was a 2-bedroom with an office. And it was just a single-story townhome with a 2-car garage, no backyard, virtually non-existent backyard. And it was in the middle of the model home on the complex. And so we got all this furniture. We were just piling in her mom's backyard with tarps over it. She, like an old family friend, had a couch for sale. We picked up the couch. We picked up the futon. We picked up all these random, aesthetics, right? And maybe it was about, let's say, $500 at the furniture. We'll round it up to be conservative here, but we'll round it up there. And it was about $500 we furnished this place. We had a super deal for a mattress on Amazon. Her mom had a mattress we got. Her fridge, right? We were able to get. She got a new fridge. We took the old one, and then all this got loaded in a U-Haul. And the next crazy part that we ran into, and like I said, this is why I'm telling you the full honesty here. The next thing we ran into is now we had to get the furniture 3 hours to our property from San Diego, right? Because we didn't live near it. And oh my God. So the next step was like, all right, how are we going to get it there? And the downfall was I was going to be, I had to get sent to Yuma with the Marine Corps before all the furniture and stuff could get out there. So Martha was going to have to figure that out alone with our son. And thankfully we had several family members who stepped up to help load the U-Haul and actually even offered to drive out to Yuma. And like I said, like that's, it's one of the best experiences I've ever learned about how important like her family really is, because we got like, if there's any one thing we got lucky on during this process, it's the fact that we did have help from her family, her mom assisting with the down payment, but we paid her back. So it wasn't like it was a free loan, but it was still a loan nonetheless, but we did get the fridge. And that was one thing that was like extremely grateful. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like we did get help in that area. And the fact we had several family members who helped load the truck and then drive it out to Yuma, because I just wasn't available. The Marine Corps was like, hey, you're leaving on this day. And for you who know, when you go on detachments, like you got to go with the military. You're not going in your own car and meeting them there. Oh, heck no. You're an asset to the country. They're going to make sure you get there with them. So I arrived in Yuma. And for all you know, when you arrive there, it's usually like 3, 2 in the afternoon. Go through the check-in process, get everything set up. All the while, they're loading the U-Haul in San Diego and began the driving process out there. I get set up in my barracks room. Everything's done. It's probably like 6:30 at night. And then Martha drives like the 30 minutes. She picks me up on base. And now after going all the military stuff, loading the bags, all that junk, now I'm going to a rental property to get everything unpacked. And for you who going to detachments in Yuma, they want you to stay on base. They don't allow you to drive when you're not permanently stationed there, which is an extra stress on top of everything else. And I'm unpacking. Thankfully, again, so another help, I was able to actually recruit one of my friends, Lever, who helped me join in that process. And he helped set up the stuff outside of the home for us when we got there. And it just, oh my God, what a mess. And on top of that, so that detachment's it's about 3 months long. It's the tail end of the summer in Yuma, but it's still over 100 most days. By the end of the detachment, you hit like 90s. So during like that several month detachment, like Martha lived there, driving me to work, doing all this stuff back and forth. And now we were in a position to where so during all that time, I'm working 12 on, 12 off, 7 days a week, right? And if you're lucky, by like midway through, you get 1 day off. I had to put a garage door opener in. We resurfaced and repainted all the cabinets in the home. We set everything up. We fixed any issues that would cause any issues. Martha was taking pictures of the property. And to be honest with you, I barely slept the whole time. And especially with like a newborn, it's nuts. Like it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be in that position to have all of that done. And then she handled all like the setting up the Airbnb profile and all this craziness, right? And that's why I tell people, realize like if you don't have the money and the resources off the bat, like you're gonna have to bootstrap something. Like success doesn't come from nothing. And even after getting the rental property and getting done with that detachment, the craziness wasn't over. Now we're in managing mode, right? We're making sure, Martha was having to hire cleaners and, we had to do that, making sure things were taken care of. Thankfully, we were able to find local people and interview them, and we got cleaners in and work out a deal to where people stopped staying. And overall, like after the first year, which we pretty much made no money, it was a net zero operation between furnishing it, repaying back her mom for investing in the down payment, and everything like that. We got our systems figured out. We were making, after that, in the second year, about $500 per month. Now, I'll tell you, like, there's a lot of ways I know now, looking back. I wish that I maybe understood I don't regret much of it because it really was a great experience looking back. It was a really big learning experience. It helped me understand overall, like how I feel about management, how I feel about hiring a manager instead, and putting someone else in place to take care of that daily mess of managing. Some people really like it and thrive in it. I know I can do it and we can do it as a team. But it's not something I want to do because it's extra hours I'm spending every day answering phone calls, managing the app, in this case for short-term rental and all this stuff. But yeah, we made about, it was about an average of 500 per month over the entire year. Some months we had crazy stays, some months we had none. And we even had returning customers who would book an entire month, which was like 500 more than like the rent would in the area, which is fantastic. I was like, yeah, sure. Like, why not? And, it was crazy. There was even one situation where I got off work on a Friday after a 12-hour, about the time I got home, it was like a 14-hour shift. And we had a situation where we ended up having a felon who got arrested inside the property, and two people who weren't on the guest list were just squatting in the home for an extra day afterwards. And we had to drive out there and figure the situation out because out there in Yuma at the time, short-term rentals, there weren't any laws for figuring that situation out. Like we had to go out there, and thankfully by the time we got there, they had left. They had taken apart our vacuum cleaner. Like there's probably signs of like, a lot of smoking and stuff, which we didn't allow on the property. But thankfully the damage was very minimal. We got their security deposit, which you have to pay obviously on Airbnb, and everything worked out to where we got the damages paid for. But like chaos, right? There's always something that comes up, and no matter what level you are, like you're gonna have to figure out, either have systems in place to deal with it, or you're gonna most likely in the beginning you're probably gonna have to deal with it. And nothing's perfect. I realized after going through that experience that nothing's perfect, that there are, every step of the way there's issues. You're gonna have to overcome them. Like that is life. If you don't go through the pain, like I can tell you now, like when things go right, I'm so much more grateful because like about the issues that we had to go through. I understand that, like, I'm not a huge fan of short-term rentals. Maybe I'll use it to arbitrage. Like if I like to visit somewhere, I'll maybe get an Airbnb to have that place pay for itself where we want a vacation. So when we're not living there, it's paying for itself, right? And I also learned that like you can use other people's money. Like you don't have the money to invest in a property. You can reach out to people maybe people you don't know. And if you can like convince them and show them that what you're going on, like all of a sudden they can help fund you getting into a property. Maybe you give them part ownership. Maybe they're just giving you a temporary loan on the down payment and you give them a percentage back, whatever you can figure out. Like, there are so many ways to get into a property. And I'm so thankful I had to get creative with that first one so I could understand like the stress and what you have to go through to get into that first property, because it's not easy. And what's crazy is going through all that chaos, all like the good and the bad. We ended up switching it to a normal rental with a lease because rents had gone up at the time, and I was comfortable making like about $300 a month extra, and had a lease in place. And I was short-term rental, just it's a lot of stress. Like we had comments like people give you like a 1-star review because they didn't have a rocking chair. And I was like, oh Jesus! For those of you who know me, that's not my personality. It's not what I thrive in, and it just annoys me that people you can't take down those reviews. But we went to a standard rental with a lease in place, and that's more my style. But what's crazy is after 3 years, and this is before the COVID crazy appreciation, after 3 years, we were able to sell that property, and after all expenses, not including the cash flow we made every month, we sold it for $50,000 net profit. And, after all the pain, all the craziness that we went through, with delayed gratification, we found ourselves being able to, make a substantial sum of money. And now if you're smart with it, obviously at the time when I left the military, we found ourselves in a dark place. I left my job at the time because it just wasn't fitting. It was a lot of stuff that went on. A lot of that money went towards bringing us back to net zero on our debt and income. But imagine if that's one thing I didn't do right? It was managing my personal finances during that time. But now I learned, now I know better. And now I know if I took that $50,000 now, oh my gosh, at that time before COVID, I probably could have bought 2 more properties smartly with it. And I realized that, it's a step up game. You get that first property, and as long as you can make sure it cash flows even a little bit, and you build that appreciation over even a 5-year period, that one property could become 2. And those 2 can become 4, and you just keep building and building and building. And that's what I didn't do right the first time, is I didn't have that long-term plan of what am I going to do when I sell this property, or am I going to sell this property? And what about instead of that $50K, what if I just did a cash out refinance and I took that money and then I still would have had it during COVID and would have made even more money? So it's realizing that, I didn't get the right guidance at the time, and I just sold it because I thought that's the only way I can get cash for my rental property. Not true at all. Like, I definitely could have cashed out, refinanced, and I still would have had at least 75% of that money. And I could have done the same thing that I already did. So it's like, you know what? I mean, it's realizing that you need to make sure you get the right guidance and have the right plan in place. If you are looking to invest in property, whether, here or anywhere in the country, like, I'm happy to help you. Like, you can just reach out to me. We can have that conversation, build that plan. I just did it with someone last week. And it's realizing that there is no right time. I don't care if the market's going up or down or the world's exploding. Like, there is no right time to invest in real estate. There's just you, your situation, and when you should make that decision. So I hope this gave value. I hope it gave you insights into there is no perfect situation. Like, there's always stress and concerns and issues that come up, and you have to make sure that you're ready to go through them as you go through them. So I hope you got value in this. If you are coming in late to the video, feel free to go back to the beginning, rewatch it. It's just me going through my entire situation of my rental property and everything in between. So hope you got value, and hope you guys have a good rest of your day.